Hello everyone, myself Dr. Divya Meena from Department of Conservative Dentistry and Endodontics. In this session, we shall see about the minimally invasive techniques for dental caries management. So a brief introduction about the contents that we're going to discuss about. First, we will see an introduction about why this minimally invasive techniques was introduced and the default or the defects in your traditional caries management methods, followed by the principles of minimally invasive dentistry techniques, the newer caries classification, and then your remineralization techniques, your treatment methods that we apply in minimally invasive treatment protocols, and then followed by the management of your old restorative material or a fractured restoration. So initially, in olden days or in the conventional method, what G.V. Black proposed was extension for prevention, where in order to prevent the recurrent caries or the secondary caries, or in order to give a prophylactic treatment before the caries occurrence was the concept in your traditional methodology for management of dental caries. Later on, with the recent development in technology as well as in the restorative materials with the higher capability for remineralization and biomimetic properties, the introduction of minimally invasive treatment protocols have been introduced, where the loss of tooth structure is being minimized, and which is the principle of the minimally invasive dentistry techniques. To go by the definition, the minimally invasive dentistry can be defined as a philosophy of professional care concerned with the first occurrence, earliest detection, and earliest possible cure of disease on micromolecular levels, followed by minimally invasive and patient-friendly treatment to repair the irreversible damage that has been caused by such disease like dental caries, given by Tyers et al. So to look back into the history, what happened was in 1891, G.V. Black was the first to put forth the concept of extension for prevention in dental caries management. After which there came the designs of cavities that is what is being followed so far in management of dental caries treatment in our undergraduate syllabus, followed by for amalgam cavity restorations. So after this, there came the introduction of the other methods of removal of caries as well as for restorative materials, in which your abrasion was first described by Robert Black in 1945, and then in 1963 the first distal approximal surface of your primary second molar was restored using a silicate cement. This laid the foundation for the invention of glass ionomer cements by Wilson and Kent in 1969, which became the breakthrough in introduction of remineralizing and fluoride releasing restorative materials. After which Martley in 1966 modified the cavity designs that was laid by Black, and then Simonson introduced preventive resin restoration in 1977, and then atraumatic restorative materials in mid-1980s was pioneered in Zimbabwe and Tanzania, which gave a breakthrough to manage your dental caries treatment in rural places where there was no facility for contemporary dental caries management. So this was also another breakthrough for introduction of minimally invasive caries management techniques. Later on, the introduction of tunnel restoration was introduced by Hunt and Knight, and then the newer classification of caries was given by G.J. Mount and Hume. And later on, the recent advances have been introduced up to the introduction of your laser using your laser cavity preparations are done, including your ozone therapy, and then recently introduced resin infiltration techniques for white spot lesion management. So the loop that has been created from your G.V. Black's extension for prevention has been now converted to a minimally invasive dentistry. So this is towards the future. It is going to be more towards prevention for extension, and your remineralizing concepts is what is going to get evolved in the future. So the concept from G.V. Black's extension for prevention is moving towards the prevention for extension. The primary principal goal of the minimally invasive dentistry is to identify the disease first and then to restore the lost tooth structure and function. So identification of the dental caries before it gets cavitated in white spot lesion stage, or before the formation of your cavitated lesion in the subsurface level itself, to identify with the newer introduction of diagnostic materials like your Diagnodent. That is what is main. Then after identification, the prevention of caries before its occurrence, or preventing or arresting of the dental caries after its occurrence, and then treatment of your cavitated lesions. So this can be put forward by 4 core principles. First is recognition, to identify and assess any potential caries risk factors earlier through lifestyle analysis, saliva testing, and plaque diagnostic test. So then is reduction, to eliminate or minimize caries risk factors through altering fluid balance, reducing the intake of dietary carcinogenic foods, addressing lifestyle habits such as smoking, and increasing the pH of the oral environment. Then comes your regeneration, to arrest and reverse the incipient lesions, regenerating enamel subsurface lesions and arresting root surface lesions using appropriate topical agents, including your fluorides, casein phosphopeptides, amorphous calcium phosphates. Then the final one comes your repair. So this repair has been introduced by the has been evolved using by the introduction of the bioactive materials. So rather than your intervention, as much as possible of the tooth structure should be conserved and maintained by using this minimally invasive techniques, and your restoration is requires a bioactive material. Okay. So this MI concepts, your minimally invasive concepts, can be given under various stages. That is, Tyers and colleagues have given few minimally invasive concepts that should be employed. First is early caries diagnosis, then classification of caries depth and progression using your radiographs, assessment of individual caries risk like high, moderate, low, then reduction of the cariogenic bacteria to decrease the risk of further demineralization and cavitation, arresting of the active caries lesion, remineralizing and monitoring of non-cavitated arrested lesions, placement of restorations in teeth with cavitated lesions using minimal cavity designs, repair rather than replacement of defective restorations, and assessing the disease management outcomes at pre-established intervals in order to have a recall of the patient and in order to assess the course of the disease. So this presentation will encounter all these concepts that has been introduced. Then the newer classification of caries was introduced by G.J. Mount and Hume in order to classify the caries based upon their site and size. The difficulty in G.V. Black's classification for cavities was mainly because of the it was not more of site specific. So the newer classification of caries introduced by G.J. Mount and Hume was more towards your site and size specific. So the site included pit and fissure, which was graded as 1, and contact area was given the number 2, and cervical was given 3. So the size, whether it was no cavity, it was given as 1, and as 0, and when it was minimum, it was given as 1.1, and when it was moderate, it was given as 2, when it was enlarged as 3, and extensive as 4. So first, the lesion should be classified according to their site, whether it is site 1, 2, or 3, and then it should be classified according to the amount of demineralization or amount of extension of the caries lesion. So if it is size 0 without a cavitation, which can be remineralized. If it is size 1, a small cavitation just beyond the healing through remineralization itself you can do. And then if it is size 2, it is a moderate cavity which is not extended up to the cusps. Size 3 is enlarged cavities that with at least one cusp is undermined and which needs protection from the occlusal root. Size 4 is extensive cavity with at least one lost cusp or that of an incisor edge. So now coming to the factors that will influence this treatment and minimal intervention is that your demineralization, remineralization cycle that occurs in your oral environment. So then comes your adhesive in your restorative dentistry. So how far isolation is being produced, how far your dentin bonding agents or your GIC gets adhesives in adheres in your tooth structure, and then the introduction of biomimetic restorative materials that can mimic that of your lost tooth structure, whether that of your enamel, whether it can give that much strength as the enamel, or whether it could have a dentinal support. That is what is the factors that have been influencing your minimal intervention. So a point to be noted in remineralization of early caries lesion reduction carcinogenic bacteria is that the dental caries passes through a series of demineralization, remineralization cycles, where the tooth alternately will lose as well as gain your calcium and phosphate ions depending upon the microenvironment that surrounds the tooth structure, whether the amount of the calcium and phosphate ions in your saliva as well as the pH of the saliva will determine this demineralization or remineralization that is going to occur. So in a neutral environment, the hydroxyapatite of the enamel is in equilibrium with saliva, which is saturated with calcium and phosphate ions. When this pH is less than 5.5, which is the critical pH for your hydroxyapatite crystals, your demineralization occurs. So in order to prevent this demineralization or to improve this demineralization to a remineralization state, you have to introduce the products that will increase the amount of calcium and phosphate in your saliva. So, or in order to introduce a fluoride, which will give the formation of fluorapatite crystals, which is more resistant to acid dissolution than your hydroxyapatite crystals. For a hydroxyapatite crystals, the critical pH is 5.5, whereas for your fluorapatite crystals, it is going to be 4.5. So in order to increase the calcium and phosphate, or in order to increase the amount of fluoroapatite crystals, your remineralization or enamel repair rehardening is being done, which is defined as the redeposition of minerals that has been lost by the enamel. So the requirements for an ideal remineralizing agent is it should diffuse into your subsurface or deliver calcium and phosphate into the subsurface, where there will be intact enamel, and beneath your intact enamel there is going to be a caries lesion. So your remineralizing agent should be able to penetrate into this subsurface, and then it should be able to work in an acidic pH where there will be more of demineralization. It should be effective in xerostomic patients. It should not deliver excess of calcium. It should not favor calculus formation. It should boost the remineralizing properties of saliva. So the various remineralizing agents that has been available in the market includes your fluoride, bioactive glasses like your Biomin Novamin technology, CPP or ACP, and there is casein phosphopeptide and amorphous calcium phosphate, tricalcium phosphate, calcium carbonate carrier, your sugar substitute that is xylitol, and ozone. Coming to fluoride, it contains your controls the caries that predominantly acts by topical effects in case of your fluoride toothpastes or your fluoride varnish. So there are 4 mechanisms that has been involved in fluoride that will increase your caries resistance. That is by increasing the enamel resistance for dissolution. So introduction of your fluorapatite crystals, which is more resistant to demineralization. Then increasing the rate of maturation of the lost enamel, or after your mineral deposition in your enamel, there will be maturation of the matrix, and thereby your fluoride will increase the rate of maturation. Then comes the remineralization of incipient caries, and it has an antibacterial effect that interferes with the adhesion of microorganisms over the tooth structure. Fluoride application can be done according to your Knudsen's technique or Brodewald's technique, wherein there will be series of recall appointments for the application of fluoride. Then is your bioactive glass or Novum technology. It was invented by Dr. Larry Hench in 1960. It contains calcium sodium phosphosilicate in an inorganic amorphous form, and coming in contact with water, it will release active calcium and phosphate ions and will promote remineralization. The sodium that has been present in Novum increases the pH of oral cavity, which will further enhance remineralization. Coming to casein phosphopeptide and amorphous calcium phosphate, the phosphopeptide that has been derived from milk casein is casein phosphopeptide basically. This contains a multiphosphorylal sequence that has the ability to stabilize the calcium and phosphate in nanocomplexes solution as amorphous calcium phosphate. Now, this CPP binds to your amorphous calcium phosphate, and this prevents the growth to a critical size required for nucleation and phase transformation to an insoluble crystalline calcium phosphate. So, your nanocomplexes will localize at the tooth structure, and this is an insoluble crystalline matrix that will prevent your enamel demineralization. So your casein phosphopeptides keeps the calcium and phosphorus ion in an ionic form. In this state, the calcium and phosphate ions can enter in tooth enamel and thus will promote your remineralization of the tooth. Here, the casein phosphopeptides will inhibit the adherence of the oral bacteria to saliva coated hydroxyapatite. This will also give an antibacterial effect and it will prevent the adhesion of oral bacteria. So then it can be incorporated into the pellicle in exchange for Streptococcus mutans and Streptococcus sorbinis, which will cause the neutralization and enhancement of remineralization. This technology has been trademarked as Recaldent, and it remineralizes the enamel subsurface lesions in situ that gives a slow the progression of coronal caries to promote the regression of caries. Then comes your tricalcium phosphate. It is a hybrid material created with milling technique that fuses beta tricalcium phosphate and sodium lauryl sulfate or fumaric acid. This also results in a functionalized calcium and free phosphate, which will increase the efficacy of fluoride remineralization. Then comes your enamelon, where the amorphous calcium phosphate technology is being used. It requires a toothpaste delivery system to keep the calcium and phosphorus compounds from reacting with each other before use. When two salts are mixed, they rapidly form amorphous calcium phosphate that will penetrate into the tooth structure. This precipitated amorphous calcium phosphate can then readily dissolve into the saliva and will be available for tooth remineralization. Then comes Senistat technology, which is made up of arginine biocarbide, which is an amino acid complex. This is a calcium carbonate carrier. It was developed by Dr. Estrell Kleinberg of New York. This arginine complex is responsible for holding the calcium carbonate particles to the tooth surface and allows the calcium carbonate to dissolve slowly and release calcium, which is available for remineralization of the tooth structure. And then comes your sugar substitute, that is xylitol. It is sugar alcohol that has been shown that has a non-cariogenic as well as a good result in preventing dental caries. It is available in chewing gums or in mouthwashes. Xylitol results in reduction of dental plaque formation, neutralization of plaque acids by decreasing the production of lactic acid. It reduces the levels of Streptococcus mutans, reduction of cavities up to 80%, and remineralization of tooth enamel. Then ozone. Ozone is a newer technology that has been introduced for both remineralization of dental caries as well as for preparation of dental caries structure. For removal of hard tissue also ozone is being used. With regard to remineralization, ozone is a chemical compound that consists of 3 oxygen atoms, and ozone therapy is proposed to stimulate remineralization of incipient caries lesion for a treatment for a period of about 6 to 8 weeks. So ozone is naturally formed in the atmosphere when an ultraviolet radiation forces the atmosphere oxygen to temporarily combine in groups of 3 atoms, and this gives an energized form of oxygen which can be used to kill your live bacteria and fungi that becomes dead and dead bacteria, and it introduces water and carbon dioxide as its byproducts. So heel ozone will inactivate 99% of bacteria in 10 seconds. So the clinical steps in ozone therapy: first, a polymer cup is adapted to the primary caries lesion. Ozone gas is delivered at 10 seconds into the cup. The gas is passed to activated carbon filter, and fluid is being pumped for 5 seconds. The fluid is basically 2% sodium fluoride plus 5% xylitol. There is also a home care kit available in this heel ozone, where the kit comprises of toothpaste, mouth rinse, and a spray rinse. So the recall should be done after 3 months, and usually the people with respiratory distress are contraindicated, and it may exaggerate the respiratory distress that has been already there. When you're using an ozone therapy for preparation of caries or preparation of your heart tissue, the time required for the depth of penetration will depend upon the extent of the lesion. So when your ozone is given for 10 seconds, it can give a remineralizing property. When the same ozone is being given for 20 seconds, it can enter into the enamel. So by increasing the time, it can the ozone can enter into the subjective enamel and dentin. So first, the tooth structure is first clean, then ozone gas is delivered using a pump, then the treatment with the fluid is being given, further which the remineralization solution is applied. So this is with regard to the remineralizing techniques that has been used in minimally invasive. So after this, what we are going to see is your cavity preparation techniques, the mechanical, chemical methods of or various modalities for creation of cavity, and then your restorative materials. So the first, let us have a look about the available restorative materials that is used in minimally invasive dentistry. It is basically more of remineralizing restorative materials are used, like your glass ionomer cement, resin modified glass ionomer, resin based composites, dentin bonding agents, combination of your GIC and composite, like in your sandwich techniques, compomers, and the newer introduction of biomimetic restorative materials have given a higher improvement in the minimally invasive techniques, like introduction of biodentin and MTA has increased the biomimetic achievement of this biomimetic nature to that of the lost hydroxyapatite dentin as well as the enamel. Coming to the mechanical treatment modalities in minimally invasive treatment, first we are going to see about the atraumatic restorative technique, that is ART, which was pioneered in mid-1980s in Zimbabwe and Tanzania in the need for basic treatment of caries teeth in communities with limited resources, mostly in the rural places. So the principles of atraumatic restorative treatment is basically excavation of caries with hand instruments, minimal intervention cavity, and restoration with a more adhesive and remineralizing material like a glass ionomer cement. So ART is a minimal intervention approach to arrest an active caries lesion. It is based on a combined technique material effect that applies Bachelor's theory to arrest the caries progression while using the healing potential of glass ionomer to remineralize that of the affected dentin. In ART, it is a caries control procedure based on the stabilization of the caries process, replacement of fast-setting auto-curing glass ionomer cement. The glass ionomer material has considerable potential as a long-term temporary restoration, the treatment of active caries. The ART procedure may be considered as an indirect outcapping therapy also. So here's a small video about the demonstration of atraumatic restorative materials. So coming to the instruments that are required, first is the diagnostic instrument, mouth mirror, your explorer, prober, tweezer. Then comes the spoon excavator for caries excavation, carver, cotton rolls, cotton pellets, and GIC material. So it is most probably used for primary caries management. So in this video, they have demonstrated the ART technique in a 6-4 class 1 caries. So first, the cavity is clean. And here, spoon excavator is used to remove the caries lesion. So here the concept is without using a air outer, because in rural places and all, there won't be more facilities for these air outers or compressors. So in those cases only, we are going to employ ART, or in patients with more apprehensive for air to handpieces, those sounds and all, or more sensitive patients only, you're going to start with this ART, where your spoon excavators is used to remove the soft and leathery dentin. And you're going to remove back the arrested caries. That is, either the caries can be firm or hard is left behind. Your soft and leathery dentin or the tooth is caries lesion is alone removed using the spoon excavator. Your affected dentin is left behind, and we are going to restore it with glass ionomer cement that will promote remineralization of the affected dentin. The infected dentin part is already been removed. So after removal of the infected dentin, soft leathery caries, firm and hard dentin is left behind. In case if it is a very deep restoration, calcium hydroxide liner is advised to give as a pulp capping or a pulp protective agent, followed by a glass ionomer restoration. So here they have restored, and using the carver, the excess cement has been removed. The occlusal anatomy is reproduced. So advantages of ART techniques, removal of only soft demineralized dentin and friable enamel without the use of rotary instrumentation, little or no pain experience, and cost is relatively low. Anxiety found with the traditional technique can be minimized. Then coming to the sandwich technique. This technique was introduced by McLean in 1985. In sandwich technique, it will take the advantage of the physical properties of both the GIC and your composite resins. This technique is useful in situations when the strength and piecing aesthetics are essential. In this, the first tooth is restored with GIC because of its chemical adhesion to the dentin and fluoride release, followed by micromechanical bonding of the composite resin, which will provide adequate strength to the restoration. So composite resin will bond micromechanically to the set glass ionomers and chemically to the hydroxyethyl methacrylate in the resin modified glass ionomers. Here, the advantage of the bonding of glass ionomers and remineralizing capacity of the glass ionomers is used with the more stronger composite resins. So there are various types of sandwich techniques in which it is closed, open, and centripetal sandwich technique. In case of a closed sandwich technique, as you can see here, your GIC is placed as a liner, or it is given as a base thickness, and the in case of a proximal caries lesion, the GIC is covered by a composite restoration, a packable composite restoration. that doesn't have any contact with that of the gingival tissue. Your GIC does not have any contact with that of the of the gingival tissue. Your composite gives a protection. So this is a closed sandwich technique. In cases where this is not affordable, open sandwich technique is given, where the GIC has contact with that of your proximal tissues, and your composite is given over the glass ionomers cement. In case of a centripetal sandwich technique, what they have done is a transparent composite material is given in the along the proximal side, which gives the temporary wall, or which gives the initial wall that forms in the proximal side, after which a GIC is given, followed by the dentin shade composite, and your packable composite is given. So first, number one is a transparent low viscous type of composite resin, and then into there will be a dentin sheet composite restorative material that will give the proximal wall. First, the proximal wall is built, followed by 3 is the glass ionomer cement that you're going to give it as a base or a pulp protective material, followed by the packable or condensable composite restoration. So this is the centripetal type of sandwich technique. Then moving on to the Pitton-Fisher sealants and preventive resin restoration. For occlusal surface, the preparation in minimally intervention dentistry will include this use of Pitton-Fisher sealants and the preventive resin restorations. Fisher sealant is a material which is placed in pits and fissures of the teeth so as to prevent or arrest the development of caries. The fluoride treatments are most effective in preventing smooth surface caries. They are less effective in preventing the Pitton-Fisher caries. So the sealants are most effective in children when they're applied onto the Pitton-Fisher caries of the permanent posterior teeth immediately upon the eruption of the clinical crowns. So now adults can also get benefited from the use of this sealants if the individual experience has a change in caries susceptibility because of their change in diet, or in case of a medical condition, like when they're exposed to increased radiotherapy and all that. In that cases, the Pitton-Fisher sealant can be applied before that kind of treatment. So the sealant material can be self-cured, light-cured, or dual-cured, and it is mostly based upon urethane dimethacrylate or bis-GMA resins. In preventive resin restoration, what they do is, it is a conservative occlusal restoration that involves the replacement of discrete areas of the caries to structure with resin composite, followed by the use of a overlying Fisher sealant instead of a traditional extension of prevention. So there are 3 types in this preventive resin restoration, wherein type A, only the Pitton-Fisher sealants has been given. In type B, they give a base followed by a composite restoration and your Fisher sealant pertaining only to the enamel. In type C, the extension is being given to the dentin, where you give a base followed by a composite restoration and a Fisher sealant. This Fisher sealant will give the further remineralizing capacity for the tooth and prevents the formation of secondary caries too. So now, the burrs that are being used in this preventive resin restoration is the number 330 burr, number 1 size round burr, number 33.5 inverted cone burr, fissurotomy burrs that are long and thin, and your smart burrs. So what is fissurotomy burr? Is allowed to exactly do the preparation in a fissure to be explored with minimal tooth removal to evaluate the extent of caries and complete the preparation. So all these types of burr will have a minimal surface area that will prepare only that will remove only a minimal amount of the tooth structure, and major part of the tooth structure will be preserved, unless in your traditional cavity preparation methods, you're going to use a conventional burrs or a number 2 size round burr or a straight Fisher burr that is more thicker in diameter. So in fissurotomy burr, it has various sizes from original 1.1 mm width, 2.5 mm length to micro MTF and micro STF, which is 0.7 mm width and 0.6 mm width. And smart burrs. These smart burrs are polymer burrs. It is available in 2, 4, and 6 size numbers. The introduction of the smart burrs is in order to is made up of a material that has a hardness of only that of your caries affected dentin. So when this smart burr is used in the caries tooth, it is able to only remove the caries lesion and it cannot remove the hard dentin or the healthy dentin. The smart burr could not remove. It can remove only your caries affected dentin. So this property is what has been employed in polymer burrs that will prevent the excessive damage, excessive preparation of your tooth structure. So the hardness is less than the healthy enamel and dentin, but it is harder than the caries enamel and dentin. The speed it is used in 500 to 800 RPM only. The main advantage is it selectively removes caries, dentin and enamel without damaging the healthy tooth structure. So next, coming to the designs of the cavity preparation. So in order to the change that has been introduced from your GB Black's cavity class preparation to this minimally invasive preparation is a wide range. It prevents the natural tooth structure. Whereas in case if you're having a proximal caries lesion, so the conventional technique will tell you have to prepare your occlusal class 1 preparation that will extend into your proximal side as a proximal box cavity preparation. Whereas in a minimally invasive technique, this can be approached using your tunnel preparation techniques or a microchip cavity preparation, mini box cavity preparation or full box cavity preparation that will only engage the proximal box. It won't involve any of your occlusal part. So in your occlusal part, the original tooth structure is being restored or it is being saved. So this is what is the difference between your newer minimally invasive cavity preparation techniques and your amalgam, your GB Black's cavity classification. So a brief talk on this tunnel preparation is that in tunnel preparation, the access to the caries lesion is made from the occlusal surface while preserving the marginal ridge. The entry point for these preparations should not be under any occlusal load. For tooth preparation, a small tapered fissure burr with a long shank is directed at the lesion and the preparation is completed using a small round burrs and hand instruments. So as you see in this picture, here, when you have a proximal caries, your burr in your GB Black's cavity preparation for extension prevention, you will start preparing from this occlusal surface and you will prepare to this the proximal part. So in order to come to this proximal part, you will come through your occlusal as well as from the proximal side. Whereas in this tunnel preparation, what you can do is you can approach this directly from the occlusal part, preserving this marginal ridge from the occlusal part start, and then you can take a curve after reaching the proximal caries. So here your dentin is being preserved as well as the caries has also been addressed. So after using the small tapered fissure burr or a small round burrs, it can also be hand instruments like spoon excavators are also used to remove the caries, and direct placement of a remineralizing material like GIC followed by a composite restoration is given. So there are 3 types of tunnel preparation, like an internal tunnel, partial tunnel and an open tunnel. So the technique is separation of the tooth from proper access and visualization. A matrix band can be placed on the proximal side, followed by access is made using a tungsten carbide burr in the occlusal fossa about 2 mm from the marginal ridge. The burr is angulated axially to produce ovoid access cavity, but after reaching the dentin, it is angulated towards the caries lesion. Use of round burr for further preparation, then conditioning followed by restoring with GIC. So the advantages is conservation of the tooth structure, your marginal ridge, which is the more rigid or more important stress-bearing area of your tooth structure is left intact, and avoidance of iatrogenic damage to the adjacent tooth structure. Small restorative perimeter, hence the marginal leakage will also be reduced, obviously, and negligible influence on the plaque accumulation in gingival and periodontal condition. It is potentially for easy conversion to a class 2 conventional. So when if the caries progression has been stopped in this stage itself, later on if it is required, a conventional class 2 preparation can be done, and it also gives a more aesthetic appearance. So failure is more because of a secondary caries formation, where if the proximal part is not been completely debrided, or proper isolation could not be achieved, there can be chances of your secondary caries, as well as when during the preparation of the proximal cavity, if the space between the proximal and the occlusal cavity is very minimal, so your marginal ridge, if it becomes more thinner, there can be fracture of the marginal ridge. So at least a 2 mm thickness of your marginal ridge should be present between the occlusal part and your proximal part. So the disadvantages being the excavation of caries is compromised due to the lack of accessibility and visibility, because you are going to see only through your occlusal aspect, and there can be increased risk of incomplete caries removal, as we have already discussed, and risk of marginal ridge fracture, risk of progression of the proximal enamel caries, and danger of pulpal involvement. So this is with regard to the mechanical management of caries. Now coming to the chemico-mechanical or chemomechanical type of caries removal. It was first introduced by Coleman and Gronman in 1970. So this basically involves the selective removal of caries dentin. So it uses a particular type of dye which will remove the caries affected dentin, and it will soften the caries actually. So after that, you can use your hand instruments to remove the softened dentin, and restoration can be done. So in this way, the natural tooth structure, that is your hard enamel and dentin, can be preserved, and only the soft caries tooth structure will get softened, and it will be easy for removal using your hand instruments itself. So the reagents that are commonly used are Caridex and Carisol. So the mode of action is, first, there will be after the application of your Carisolv or Caridex, there will be cleavage by degradation of the glycine and hydroxyproline that is present in your caries dentin. Then triple helix of your collagen, degradation of your intramolecular intramolecular crosslinks will get degraded. Then tropocollagen units are cleavaged by degradation of the intramolecular crosslinks. So this will cut down the bonds, or it will reduce the stiffness of your caries affected dentin, and this will physically it will be seen as a softened caries. Okay, so this is more chemically speaking, there is going to be degradation of your glycine hydroxychlorine or your tropocollagen units. Okay, physically speaking, the hard dentin is going to get hard caries affected dentin is going to get softened. Okay. So we shall see a small demonstration about the Carisol. So it removes the dental decay without damaging the healthy tooth tissue. It is fast and guaranteed caries-free treatment with fewer complications, and it is longer lasting. So consider this tooth with the caries lesion. In order for the initial accessibility alone, a burr is used to enter the caries lesion. Then the Carisol is placed for 30 seconds, and then the caries has been softened. It has been removed using your hand instruments. Or your rotary burrs. So after this, a caries detection dye is applied over the caries, the removed caries tooth structure, in order to check whether there is some other leftover caries or not. So thereby, after removing the caries dentin using this chemical reagents, your normal GIC restoration or remineralizing restorative material can be placed. So the hand instruments that is used in this KD-Solve has a multiple numbers in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and each number is a double-ended instrument with different shapes for easy removal, access for your KDs removal. So then comes the kinetic tooth preparation using your air abrasion technique. So it is a method of tooth removal that is considered to be effective alternative to conventional rotary drill. In this technique, a kinetic energy is used to remove the carious lesion. In 1943, Dr. Robert Black was pioneered in this field, and air abrasive technology is the use of compressed air to propel aluminum oxide particles in order to cut the tooth structure. In simpler terms, it is like a sandblaster only. So there will be aluminum oxide particles that will be sent to the, over the tooth structure. It will be applied over the tooth structure using a compressed air, and this will clear away the tooth structure. It will remove the hard tissue. That is basically using a compressed air and this aluminum oxide particles. So this this unit was called as an air dent, and it was introduced in 1951. So the indications specifically for caries removal, restoration preparation, cutting, etching of tooth structures, for placement of composite porcelain and ceramics, as adjunct to Dene drill and handpiece burr. In wide range, it is used for removal of superficial enamel defects, cleaning fissures and surface preparation for sealants, preparation for preventive resin restoration, removal and repair of composites, GIC and porcelain, surface preparation of abstraction and abrasion, removal of pit and fissure stains before placement of resin-based composites, and for cleaning and preparation of a tooth structure and casting of cementation or rebonding. Contraindications, usually asthmatic or patients with dust allergy are contraindicated. Patients with periodontal disease, laceration, open wounds, recent extraction site or subgingival preparation, your aluminum oxide air abrasion is contraindicated. Advantages: there is no shattering of the enamel or microfractures as that with the burr. There is no heat production. It is silent and fast, and preparation maintains structural integrity of the tooth. Disadvantages is that there is no tactile feeling because the handpiece tip does not touch the tooth. It will be just placed above the tooth structure, and it does not remove the soft caries particles. It will bounce off the area of the soft dentin. The dust problem, the powder will settle over the tooth structure, and it produces rounded cavities that are not suited for preparations requiring a definitive walls and sharp margins. So and risk of soft tissue lacerations or air embolism is also present with the air abrasion techniques. The commonly used particle sizes is of 27 to 50 micrometers in diameter of the aluminum oxide particles. The speed of the abrasive particle will depend upon the air pressure, the size of the particle, powder flow, nozzle diameter, angle of the tip, and the distance of the tip from that of the tooth structure. So here's the demonstration about it. So the patient is given a protective eyewear. This is the tip of the air abrasive unit. So see, the tip does not touch the tooth structure, but a compressed air with aluminum oxide particles is applied over the tooth structure from a distance, and it will take a longer time for this technique to remove the hard surface dentin. So that is why it is not employed that much in your clinical practice. So there is no vibration. There will be minimal heat generation, less need for anesthesia, maximum tooth strength, minimal tooth reduction. You can see a stream of aluminum oxide particles is coming out from the nozzle or tip. So next is sono aberration. It uses a sonic 6 micro unit where there will be sonic oscillations of your tip in elliptical motions. Okay, there are three tips that are being used. One is torpedo, small hemisphere, and large hemisphere types of tips. It is also used for a cavity preparation only. Basically, for a predetermined cavity outlines, the sono aberration can be used, and in order to finish your cavity preparations, to give a smooth and sharp finish, this sono aberration can be used, and in order to remove the soft and dentin caries also. These are all adjunctives to that of your conventional cavity preparation techniques. So then comes the use of lasers, hydrokinetic type of caries removal. In 1988, Pagdiwala tested the erbium YAG laser for its ability to dental hard tissue laser. In 1992 only, the first medical laser was used. The commonly used lasers for tooth preparation is erbium yttrium YAG garnet laser. So this is the most commonly used type of laser, hard tissue removing laser. Then the other types are also based upon the erbium, chromium, yttrium, scandium, gallium, garnet lasers, and these lasers can remove soft caries as well as the hard tissue caries. So other excimer lasers are also used. Your carbon dioxide laser is used for sealing of the fissures. And this laser also has an antibacterial effect, like it destroys the Streptococcus mutans, and it is more resistant to, it provides a surface that is more resistant to demineralization. So steps gently touch the target tissue with the tip end, direct warm stream to target tissue, and keep the tip moving for effective ablation and cooling. So once one part has been ablated or removed, the tip should be moved such that that part will get cooled immediately. And then for a wide cut, it should be constantly moved the tip over the surface. For a deep cut, the tip should be moved up and down. So usually laser is not visible. This is a sensor that shows the direction of the laser light. So this is a caries affected tooth, wherein your laser tip is placed over the caries tooth. Here, that red light sensor is not present, so it is not visible. Slowly, gently, you have to place it over the tooth surface. For a wide cut, it should be moved along the direction of the caries lesion. For a deeper cut, it should be moved up and down. So this is a erbium YAG laser that is being used here. This is followed by the restoration. So now coming to the resin infiltration technique that has been recently introduced to seal the white spot lesions basically, and in order to treat dental fluorosis condition. In this resin infiltration technique, what they do is a subsurface caries lesion or a white spot lesion, which is the earliest sign of your dental caries. So when you diagnose this earlier sign of dental caries, your resin infiltration technique can be employed in order to prevent the further damage or caries progression. So this is a simple principle where your caries or subsurface white spot lesion is being etched. After etched, dried, and then a low viscous resin is being applied over the etched surface, where the capillary action will draw the infiltrate into the deep porous enamel, and this will block your karyogenic acids. Okay, so there will be prevention of your caries progression, as well as this low viscous resin will have a refractive index such that it will pick up the color of the adjacent tooth normal healthy enamel. So it will reflect as such as the shade with that of your adjacent enamel, and this property is primarily used in management of a dental fluorosis treatment management. So this resin infiltration technique is a recent advancement that has been introduced to manage the white spot lesion as well as the dental fluorosis, or any kind of aesthetic treatment for a minimally invasive aesthetic technique. This resin infiltration technique can be given. So here's the video about the step-by-step process of resin infiltration technique. So this product is being introduced by DMG company. So it comes under the name of Icon. In this, they have demonstrated for a dental fluorosis condition. The same can be employed for a white spot lesion. Therein, there won't be a requirement of treating many teeth. So with the particular teeth, the particular spot alone, this technique can be employed. For a better understanding, I have added this video. So first, Icon H has been placed, which is 15% of hydrochloric acid. It is applied over the tooth and it is left over the tooth for 2 minutes, after which it is washed. And then it is dried using Icon Dry. Icon Dry is nothing but ethyl alcohol, which will dry the tooth surface. So when the tooth is dried, you have to look into the color compatibility with that of the adjacent tooth, with that of your white spot lesion, with that of the tooth. If there is no satisfactory result, still if you find a higher intense opaque area or white spot area, then the etchant procedure should be repeated again. So here they have applied the etchant again, and then they have checked with the Icon Dry. So after getting your satisfactory visual inspection, you can proceed with the next step. So in this case, there is no satisfactory result. So they have again etched the surface using your Icon Etch. And then again check with ethyl alcohol. And now you can see a good masking of the white spots. So after this, they are going to proceed with resin infiltration procedure. So before that, they are applying the mylar strip to prevent the infiltrant getting into the proximal spaces. So this is the low viscous resin that has been placed over the white spot or etched tooth structure, and it is left over for 2 minutes or for 20 seconds in order to for the capillary action to occur. After that, it has been light cured using your UV light, a normal light curing unit with a wavelength of 470 nanometers, and a second application is also recommended using the resin infiltration. So it is left for 1 minute and the excess is being rolled, and then light cured using for 40 seconds. And then final polishing is done. So you can very well notice the masking of the white spot lesion in a dental fluorosis. The same is going to be applied for your white spot lesion also. So this technique is more aesthetically convincing and appealing for the patient and satisfactory for the doctor as well. And it also prevents the formation of further caries damage and gives a remineralizing effect to that of your tooth structure. So this is a more advanced and more acceptable type of minimally invasive technique. But it is more specific to your white spot lesions only. So when it comes to a more cavitated lesions, as we have discussed, the earlier restorative options can be employed. So the other type of minimally invasive restorative procedures, other than so far we have dealt with that of your caries management only. So in case if there is a more loss of tooth structure, or the other options like a full crown restoration after your root canal treated teeth or something, in that case that there are also minimally invasive restorative options that have been introduced or that has been more widely used nowadays. Though these type of preparations was introduced in a more a longer time back itself. Now, when this concept of minimally invasive dentistry has evolved, these intracoronal restorations like inlays, onlays, 3/4 crowns, half and half crowns, veneers have evolved, and they have come back into the preservation of the natural tooth structure. So these are other minimally invasive restorative options that you should be knowing, have an idea about your other than the conventional treatment methods. So this is with regard to a new dental caries that so far we have seen about the prevention remineralizing agents. After that, the types of cavity preparation, how you can do using a mechanical, chemical, hydrokinetic, air abrasion types, and resin infiltration. So this is pertaining to a new caries lesion. When it comes to a old caries lesion or old restoration that has been repaired or that has become a defective fractured restoration, what are the factors that you should consider when it comes to a minimally invasive methodology? So the factors should be like whether to recontour and polish and leave the restoration, whether in case if it a composite restoration, it has got stained, so whether the restoration is requires a re-restoration or a general polish or recontour or polish or apply a removal of the superficial layer of composite and addition of a new layer is alone sufficient. So that can be done. So that is a repairing of your local defect. Or then whether to check whether the margins of your composite restoration is sealed tightly. If there is any marginal leakage, then a replacement of restoration can be done. In case if you're having a tight seal margin, then then the local defect can alone be repaired by placing another new composite over your old composite material, or in your old GIC material can be given. So these are the factors should be considered when you're treating your old restoration. So this comprises of the minimally invasive dentistry. So to conclude, the management of dental caries has been evolved from G.V. Black's extension of prevention, and it is now in the stage of a minimally invasive towards the prevention for extension state in the future. So this concept includes the early detection of lesions, individual caries risk assessment, non-surgical interventions, modified surgical approach that will include delayed restoration, smaller tooth preparation with modified cavity designs, adhesive materials, and repair rather than replacement of failing restorations. So the goal of minimally invasive preparation or methodology is to preserve the natural tooth structure. So what is lost cannot be gained back. So to prevent the loss of the natural tooth structure, to gain its full strength is what is the concept of the minimally invasive dentistry or minimally invasive methodology that you're using for your cavity preparation. The future will promise further evolution towards a more primitive preventive approach that will be facilitated by the emerging technologies for diagnosis, prevention, and treatment. Thank you.